The British bond market just collapsed, and the United States could be next. All right, guys, let's dive in. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me on the baseline. Something is shifting right now. You can feel it, even if you can't quite put your finger on what it is. It's a quiet panic. It's running through the veins of the global economy. And if you're watching this, you've probably sensed a lot of this too. And it's the strange headlines, the sudden volatility, the way leaders keep pretending everything's fine while clutching their briefcases just a little bit tighter. Now, that's not paranoia. That's the system cracking in real time. And today we have to talk about the big one. The British bond market just suffered a collapse so severe that investors are whispering about the unthinkable, an IMF bailout for the United Kingdom. Yes, Britain, the country that once ruled half the planet, might soon have to beg for help like a broke relative crashing on your couch. And if you think that's just their problem, you haven't been paying attention, because the same storm that's wrecking London's finances is already forming over Washington. And United States Treasuries, the so-called safest asset in the world, it's all flashing red right now. So let's pause, guys. Let's take a breath. And let's ask ourselves, why should we care about this? Why should someone sitting at home in the United States or any other part of the world dealing with bills, groceries, a job that feels less secure every month, care about some fancy word like gilts or bond yields? Because this isn't abstract when bonds collapse. It's not a number on a Bloomberg terminal. It's your mortgage rate. It's the cost of your groceries. It's whether your retirement fund survives or goes up in smoke. So this isn't a financial story. This is a survival story. So let's try to break all this down. The UK, after years of staggering debt and sluggish growth, just showed its bond yields hit 5.7%. Now, guys, that's the highest since maybe 1998. 27 years. And for Britain, that's devastating, because when yields go up, one of two things are going to happen, right? First, bondholders get slaughtered. Their safe investments suddenly lose value. The second thing that happens is the government's cost of borrowing just goes through the roof. It explodes. Every pound they borrowed in the past now demands higher interest payments in the future. And Britain's debt-to-GDP ratio, it's sitting at 100%. That means the entire value of everything the country produces in a year equals the size of its debt. So imagine maxing out your entire annual salary on credit cards, then realizing interest rates just doubled. Now, you don't need to be an economist or a rocket scientist or anything to see how that's going to end. And here's the crazy thing, right? Britain doesn't have the reserve currency. They can't just print pounds like the United States can print dollars endlessly without the world punishing them. The US dollar still carries that privilege, but even that shield is starting to weaken, because when your bond markets fall, your currency usually follows. And sure enough, the pound sterling just had its worst day since June, dropping over 1% in a single trading session. A falling pound means imports get more expensive, inflation spikes, and industries choke, and regular people end up paying the price. So let's throw in a reset beat here, because it's heavy, right? It's heavy to hear and comprehend, but we got to picture it like this. You're on a roller coaster, and the UK just hit that part of the track that snaps. The cars are wobbling, the bolts are flying, and the operator, he's on some kind of lunch break. And that's where we are right now. Now, Britain's government, they're scrambling. They're floating tax hikes, but with no appetite for serious spending cuts. That means the private sector shrinks while the government balloons. Now, investors see this and say, you know what? No thanks. And some analysts are even speculating about a 50 billion black hole in British finances. And usually the fix is simple, right? Borrow more. But Rachel Reeves, the new finance chief, has tied her own hands with strict fiscal rules. It's like trying to put out a forest fire with a garden hose because you promised your neighbor you wouldn't use too much water. So what's left then? Well, there's talk of IMF intervention. I don't know if you guys can imagine that humiliation, but it's got to be crazy. The UK, one of the world's financial empire, on its knees asking for International Monetary Fund for a bailout. That's like the head cheerleader showing up at a prom in sweatpants asking if she can borrow bus fare. It's just an unthinkable thing. And yet we're here. It's insane. But you might be thinking, that's Britain's mess. I live in the United States. Why should I even care? Well, here's why. Because the doom loop Britain's in, rising yields, collapsing confidence, runaway debt, is exactly what's creeping towards the United States. Our 30-year yield is already flirting with 5%. The Fed can slash short-term rates all they want, but the bond market doesn't really care. You can't cut your way out of reality when the world sees you're borrowing $1 trillion every 48 days. So yes, you heard that right. Over the last month and a half, the United States has added $1 trillion to its debt. That's 31 billion per day, almost 1 billion per hour. It's like a drunk guy at a bar shouting, "Put it on my tab," except the tab is the future of the entire economy. And Trump, this guy, he's doubling down on his trade war, slapping a 10% baseline tariff on the UK, which is already on life support. So that's like kicking someone in the ribs while they're having a heart attack. It's insane. UK exports to the United States are collapsing. Companies are shutting down. Tax revenues are vanishing. And the bond market is still watching all of it like a shark circling a bleeding swimmer. So let's hit another reset button, because I know the numbers can feel overwhelming, right? I mean, the trillion, this, I can't even put my head around it. But imagine this as a simple household budget. You earn $100,000 a year, but you owe $100,000 in debt. And every year, you end up paying $8,000 just on the interest. That's before you even cover rent, food, or healthcare. Now, the bank tells you your rate just went up. Now, suddenly that $8,000 becomes $12,000 and then $15,000. Now, how long before you realize you're never going to catch up? That's Britain right now. And it's increasingly the United States too. And the darkest part, the United States is refinancing $6.4 trillion in debt this year. That's money borrowed decades ago at low rates now coming due. Now imagine swapping your old 2% mortgage for a new 7% one, not because you want to, but because the bank demands it. That's what Washington is facing. And every time they roll over that debt, the interest bill gets bigger and bigger. It's a trap, a fiscal doom loop. Now let's sprinkle in a little light energy, because otherwise we're going to be crying into our coffee cup, guys. Because Britain going to the IMF is like the Avengers calling tech support because they forgot their Wi-Fi password. It's that absurd what's happening. And America is pretending tariffs are revenue. And that's like charging yourself rent and calling it income. Who do they think they're fooling? Yeah, that's right. It's us. Because let me be clear. This is the moment. This isn't just about numbers. This is about what kind of future we're building. Right now, governments across the G7 are telling you the pain is temporary, that tariffs will save the day, that debt doesn't actually really matter. But I think we all know better. We all can see what others miss. You see that the interest payments alone in Britain nearly 4 times, they're nearly 4 times their economic growth. You see that The United States is borrowing so much it makes the Roman Empire look frugal. And you understand the simple truth Margaret Thatcher once laid bare. The state has no money of its own. It only has yours. So here's the real question. Can Britain recover? And will the US be the next in line for a bond market revolt? Because make no mistake, guys, this isn't some far-off possibility. The cracks are already here. And that's why we need to talk about this. Not with panic, but with a sense of clarity. Because clarity is power in this situation. You watching this already know more than 90% of people scrolling through the headlines right now. You see the storm on the horizon, and that means you have a choice. We have a choice. Prepare, adapt, and demand accountability, or keep pretending the roller coaster is fine while the bolts fall off. So stay sharp, guys. Stay safe. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. You think I got this all right? Do you think I got it all wrong? I value your opinion. I read all the comments, and I always reply. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching The Baseline. I so appreciate you guys, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next round. All right, cheers, everybody.